And welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we're moving away from this JavaScript set and we're moving to map objects in JavaScript. So in this lesson, we're talking about maps in JavaScript, maps as objects, the definition of a map object, the characteristics of map objects in JavaScript. That's the topic that we are going to be looking at in this lesson. So let's dive in. Now, the map objects. A JavaScript map is an object that can store collections of key-value pairs. When you first hear the word key-value pairs, what first comes to your mind? The first thing that comes to your mind is probably objects, which is right, because when we talked about objects, that was when we talked about the concept of key-value pairs, how you store values in an object. And so, the map object also is an object that can store collections of key-value pairs, similar to a dictionary in other programming languages. So in a programming language like Python that uses dictionary, so the way it works is that it's able to store key-value pairs or values in that dictionary. And the same way this works in JavaScript is that the map object can store key-value pairs as collections. Now, maps differ from standard objects in that keys can be of any data type. So, this map that we are talking about is different from the standard objects in that keys can be of any data type. In JavaScript, when we talked about the standard objects, when you declare an object and have something like, first name, last name, age, and other things like that, usually it's always string. Or dark alphabet strings that give it's always that string that always happen to be the key, and then you pass in the value at the other end. But when we are talking about maps, though it also uses key value pair, but the keys of a map can be of any data type, as you are going to be seeing when we start talking about how to define a map, properties and method of a map object. Then you will see that its data type, its keys can be of any data type, unlike standard objects that is very limited in what can be the key of its key value pairs. Now, below are some of the characteristics of a map object. The number one is the key types. Map keys can be any type. It can be strings, numbers, objects, etc. So when we are talking about keys of a map object, it can be of any type. It's not limited. It's not, restricted to a certain type of data value that can be used for it. So for map objects, it can be of any type. It can be a string. It can be numbers. It can be objects, etc. Number two, the insertion order. The map remembers the original insertion order of the keys. So when you insert keys for a map object, it remembers the original insertion order. So let's say you put 2 before 4, you put 4 before 3. Now that insertion order, progressively it remembers it. So the order of how the order of the keys of a key value pairs of a map object, the map remembers that original insertion. Number 3 is the size. The number of items in a map is easily retrieved using the size property. So when you want to know the number of items in a map, you can easily retrieve it using the size property. So the size property is one of the property of a map object that allows its size to be retrieved. Another thing is that maps performance. Maps are optimized for frequent addition and removal of key value pairs. So just like when we were talking about array, how you can use the array push, and one other method like that to either add or remove from your element of an array. The same way, the key value pairs of a map object can be removed. So you can it is optimize for frequent additions and removals of key value pairs. And the next characteristic is iteration. So maps are iterable, allow for direct use of for love loops or methods like for each loop. So remember that when we talked about the weak set, with weak sets are not iterable by default because of the fact that the values of a weak set can be garbage collected. But in case of maps, you can iterate over the value. So you can use things like for of loops or method like for each to iterate over the values of a map object. And then the last thing is the iteration order. So the original order is preserved during iteration. So when you iterate over the elements of a map object, so the original order is preserved, just as you saw, you will be seen in the examples that we'll be talking about going forward. So in the next lesson, we'll begin to see how you can make map objects. And I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.